My dear sisters, stop being too soft in the wrong way. Islam doesn't tell you to let people walk all over you, use you, or break you down. No, my sister, Islam tells you to be respected, strong, and firm. Let me tell you something. Being soft in your heart is beautiful, but being soft with your rules, soft with how much you value yourself, and soft when people hurt you, that's not Islam. That's not what our mother Khadijah taught us. That's not how Aisha lived. That's not what Fatima showed us. They were loving, yes, but they were also smart, wise, and confident. They couldn't be tricked, not even by the strongest men. Why? Because they were strong in their faith, in their purpose, in who they were as believing women. My sister, strength is not being mean. Strength is knowing when to walk away from things that make Allah unhappy. How many times have you stayed quiet when wrong things were happening, thinking that being patient means letting people treat you badly? No, true patience is staying strong while obeying Allah. It's not hiding your voice when the truth needs to be said. It's not ignoring disrespect because you're scared of being rejected. That's not patience, that's fear. The Prophet Muhammad said the strong person is not the one who can fight, but the one who controls themselves when they're angry. So yes, control your feelings, but don't push down your worth. Don't become someone who needs people to praise you all the time to feel alive. Don't be so soft that you melt under pressure from people who don't even fear Allah. You don't need to fight like the world fights, but you do need to stand like the believing women stood, with respect, with boundaries, with purpose. Sisters, listen carefully. The more you care about what people say, the softer you become in the wrong ways. But the more you care about what Allah thinks of you, the stronger and more beautiful you become. In this world, people will test you. Some will try to make you quiet. Some will try to use you. But if your connection with Allah is strong, no one can break you. So today I tell you, stop being soft in your religion. Stop being soft in your standards. Stop being soft when Allah created you to be strong. May Allah give you strength like Maryam, wisdom like Aisha, and courage like Khawla bint al-Azwar. Amen. Islam honors strength in women, not just physical or worldly strength, but inner, spiritual, and emotional toughness. Often when people talk about women in religion, they think that Islam tells women to be quiet, obedient, and passive, but that's wrong. Islam respects the woman who knows her worth, who stands for truth, who doesn't give up her beliefs, and who doesn't let herself be used, tricked, or broken down by society. The idea that a good Muslim woman is someone who always agrees, who never speaks up, and who gives up her respect for others, that's not Islamic, that's cultural, and there's a big difference. When we look at the women honored by Allah in the Quran and in the life of the Prophet Muhammad, we see examples of incredible strength. Khadijah, the first believer in Islam, was not soft in the wrong way. She was a successful businesswoman, independent, decisive, and respected. She supported the Prophet not just with her money, but with her wisdom. She didn't hesitate to comfort him when he came down from the cave after the first revelation, terrified and unsure. She said with clarity, Allah will never disgrace you. That was strength. That was confidence based on faith. Take Idusa. Her knowledge shaped the community. She told thousands of stories about the Prophet, corrected companions when they made mistakes, and was asked about major matters of religion. Would you call that soft? No, that was firmness and clarity in religion. Her mind was sharp, her tongue was confident, but always based on faith. Islam never said women should be weak. In fact, the believing woman is called a fortress of honor and integrity. And a fortress is not soft. A fortress doesn't fall under pressure. A fortress protects. Likewise, Allah expects believing women to protect their respect, their faith, and their values, even when the world pushes against them. Unfortunately, some sisters today are taught from a young age that being a good Muslim woman means making everyone happy, no matter how she feels. She's told to say yes, to stay silent, to accept everything. But this kind of softness becomes dangerous. It leads to emotional tricks, spiritual tiredness, and even abusive relationships. Islam teaches balance. Be gentle, yes. Be kind, yes. But not at the cost of your boundaries and your self-worth. You're not here to make everyone happy. You're here to serve Allah. That means you must be strong. The Prophet said the strong believer is more loved by Allah than the weak believer, although both are good. That strength includes women. It includes the strength to say no when something is wrong, the strength to walk away from toxic people, the strength to raise your children on truth, the strength to lower your gaze in a world that's constantly calling you to give up. That strength is not being mean. It is not rebellion. It is obeying Allah with respect. Don't let anyone convince you that Islam wants you to be fragile. Islam wants you to be firm. A woman who can face the storms of this life with her head held high and her heart connected to her Creator. That's the kind of woman Allah loves. Think of Maryam. She faced the worst accusations, stood alone during childbirth, and didn't have a husband to protect her. But she had Allah, and He honored her above the women of the world. Why? Because she had God consciousness, because she trusted Allah and stayed firm. My dear sister, don't mistake emotional softness for faith. It's good to be kind, it's good to have mercy, but when you find yourself giving up your religion, losing your voice, or accepting disrespect in the name of being soft, that's a problem. Islam gave you rights. Islam gave you a voice. Islam gave you permission to protect yourself, to demand respect, and to hold firm to your values, even if people don't like it. The world needs more women who are soft-hearted but strong-willed, who can cry in prayer but speak with power in public, who are gentle with the weak but unshaken by criticism, who love for Allah's sake and walk away for Allah's sake. That balance of mercy and might is the sign of a true Muslim woman. So the next time someone tells you that being quiet, obedient, and easily controlled makes you righteous, remind yourself, Allah honors strength, not stubbornness, not ego, but spiritual strength. And that strength begins when you fear no one but Him. Emotional intelligence is one of the greatest strengths a woman can have, not a weakness as many people wrongly believe. In Islam, emotions are not something to hide or be ashamed of. Rather, they are part of our human nature, a sign of our caring, and a way we connect to others and understand ourselves. However, emotional intelligence means learning how to manage those emotions, not be ruled by them. A woman who has emotional depth but lacks control becomes weak, not just to others, but to her own insecurities and fears. Islam doesn't tell women to erase their emotions, but to use them in ways that lift them up. The Prophet Muhammad was the most emotionally intelligent of all human beings. He cried, he felt pain, he showed love, and he expressed sadness, but he was never led by emotion in a way that made him unfair, unreasonable, or reckless. He was balanced, and that is the goal for every believer, to reach emotional maturity that shows both softness of heart and firmness of principle. This applies to women especially because in many cultures, women are taught to believe that their emotional side is either a weakness or a license to lose control. Islam teaches neither. Islam teaches that emotions are a trust and you are responsible for how you act on them. For a woman to grow spiritually, she must first develop a strong connection with her own self. She must recognize her emotional triggers, the patterns that cause her to fall into sadness, to react quickly, or to seek approval where she shouldn't. Emotional intelligence means being able to feel sadness without becoming bitter, to feel love without becoming dependent, to feel anger without becoming destructive. And this strength is something the Prophet taught when he said the strong one is not he who defeats others in wrestling, but the one who controls himself when angry. That saying isn't just for men, it's for you too, my sister. Today, many women confuse kindness with allowing people to cross their boundaries. They confuse being emotional with being reactive. But emotional maturity means understanding the time and place for everything. There are times to cry, and there are times to speak. There are times to be patient, and there are times to draw the line. A woman who is emotionally intelligent doesn't allow herself to be constantly moved by people's opinions or tricked by temporary emotions. Instead, she learns to control her heart by connecting it to Allah, because when your heart is connected to the Creator, you're not easily disturbed by the creation. When a woman lacks emotional intelligence, she often becomes a victim of her own feelings. She may stay in relationships that damage her soul because she doesn't want to upset others. She may tolerate disrespect to avoid confrontation. She may carry guilt that doesn't belong to her, and blame herself for things she cannot control. Islam doesn't ask this of you. Islam calls you to self-awareness and personal strength. The Prophet said, whoever knows himself knows his Lord. Part of knowing yourself is being honest about your emotions, not running from them but understanding them and using them to become closer to Allah. Emotional intelligence also means having the wisdom to respond, not react. When someone insults you, You don't need to prove your worth to them. You prove your worth by remaining calm, respectful, and trusting that Allah will handle what you cannot. A woman who is quick to react to every word, every criticism, every rejection, becomes tired and confused. But a woman who trains her soul to stay calm, to seek Allah first before responding, becomes powerful in her silence and wise in her speech. This kind of strength doesn't come from books alone. It comes from life, from prayer, from tears shed in the middle of the night, and from a conscious effort to please Allah more than people. Emotional intelligence is not about hiding pain. It's about learning to carry that pain with grace, to turn wounds into wisdom, and to use every hardship as a way of growing closer to Allah. In a world that often praises emotional numbness or impulsive outbursts, Islam teaches something more noble: balance. You are allowed to feel deeply, you are allowed to cry, you are allowed to be affected by life, but you are not meant to drown in those feelings. You are meant to rise above them, grow from them, and let them bring you closer to your Lord. So my dear sister, do not let anyone convince you that your emotional side makes you weak. What makes you weak is being ruled by emotions you haven't understood. What makes you strong is the ability to feel with depth but respond with wisdom. That is emotional intelligence, and that in the sight of Allah is real strength. Many women today confuse patience with staying silent in the face of unfairness. They believe that tolerating harmful behavior, enduring toxic environments, and never speaking up for themselves is part of being a good Muslim woman. But that's not patience. That's not what Islam teaches. True patience is not passive. It is not weak. It is not silent when silence allows harm to continue. In Islam, patience is strength. It is the ability to endure with respect, to respond to hardship with action based on faith, and to stand firm in truth even when it's difficult. There is no good in allowing yourself to be mistreated in the name of patience. Allah does not call upon His believing servants to be doormats. He commands them to stand for justice, even if it is against themselves or their loved ones. In Surah An-Nisa, Allah says, "O all you who have believed, be persistently standing firm in justice, witnesses for Allah, even if it be against yourselves or parents or relatives." This verse applies to everyone, men and women. Islam does not differentiate between the moral responsibility of each believer when it comes to standing for what is right. So why are so many women taught that they must tolerate oppression for the sake of peace? That is not Islam. That is a misunderstanding of what patience truly means. There is a reason why Islam forbids injustice in all its forms, whether it is done by a ruler, a spouse, a parent, or a friend. Injustice is something Allah Himself has declared forbidden. The Prophet said in a sacred saying, "O my servants, I have forbidden injustice for myself, and have made it forbidden among you, so do not oppress one another." If Allah forbid injustice even upon Himself, how can we think that enduring injustice is somehow noble? Yes, there are times when we are tested, times when patience is necessary, but patience is not the same as silence. For example, when you are being wronged and you continue to pray, take action, and protect your respect, that is patience. But when you allow someone to keep harming you, disrespecting you, and you do nothing to stop it, thinking that this is your religious duty, that is not patience. That is self-neglect. Islam never encourages you to neglect yourself. The Prophet said there should be neither harming nor reciprocating harm. This saying is a foundational principle in Islamic ethics. It tells us that both harming others and allowing harm to continue are against the spirit of Islam. So if you are in a situation where you are constantly being mistreated, whether emotionally, physically, or verbally, and you remain in that situation believing it is part of your faith to do so, you need to reevaluate. Islam commands you to protect your respect and your heart. Look at how the Prophet treated women. He never allowed their voices to be silenced. Women came to him with their complaints, their questions, and their concerns, and he listened. He didn't tell them be patient and remain silent. He addressed their pain. When one woman came to complain about her husband's harsh behavior, in Surah Al-Mujadilah, Allah revealed verses acknowledging her pain and injustice. Indeed, Allah has heard the statement of the woman who argues with you, or Muhammad, concerning her husband. If Allah heard her voice from above the heavens, how can we tell women today to stay silent?
We must understand that patience is an active process. It involves spiritual effort, emotional control, and wise action.
It doesn't mean allowing someone to abuse your kindness or take advantage of your loyalty. If someone is harming you, you have every right according to Islamic law to defend yourself, to speak out, and to seek change. That does not make you rebellious. That makes you strong. That makes you a believer who understands the value Allah has given her. When a woman stops confusing silence with piety, she begins to live Islam the way it was meant to be lived, with confidence, with strength, and with balance. You can be a woman of patience and still walk away from what breaks you. You can be patient and still protect your peace. Islam is not a religion that calls you to suffer quietly. It calls you to stand with respect, to speak with wisdom, and to act with courage. So, dear sister, do not think your worth is in how much pain you can endure. Your worth is in how much faith you carry through that pain, and how you use that faith to rise, protect yourself, and do what pleases Allah. True patience is standing firm, not lying down. When we look into the lives of the greatest women in Islamic history, we do not find fragile, passive, or overly dependent personalities. What we see are examples of strength, wisdom, and courage. Women who were bold in their decisions, firm in their faith, and impactful in their communities. Islam has never asked women to be silent shadows in the background. On the contrary, it gave them a voice, rights, and roles of influence. The idea that a woman must be soft to the point of silence or gentle to the point of being ignored is not only un-Islamic, it is unfair. Consider Khadija bint Khuwaylid, the first wife of the Prophet Muhammad. She was not just a wife, she was a powerful, wealthy businesswoman known for her intelligence and integrity. She was so respected in Mecca that men would seek her out to do business with her. She proposed marriage to the Prophet based on his character, not societal expectations. When he received the first revelation and was shaken to his core, it was Khadija who comforted him, reminded him of his worth, and reassured him that Allah would never abandon someone like him. That's not the reaction of a soft, uncertain woman. That is the voice of strength, wisdom, and emotional stability. Then there is Aisha bint Abu Bakr, the wife of the Prophet, one of the greatest scholars in our history. She narrated over 2,000 sayings of the Prophet. She corrected the companions when they misunderstood the teachings of the Prophet. She was consulted in matters of Islamic law, and many male companions would come to her for answers. Would we dare call her soft in the modern sense? She was sharp, expressive, educated, and deeply involved in the preservation of Islam. She had confidence in herself because her knowledge and connection with Allah gave her inner strength. Her example shows us that being a righteous Muslim woman includes speaking up, asking questions, correcting misunderstandings, and standing on firm ground when you know the truth. Another powerful figure is Salama, another wife of the Prophet. She was known for her intelligence and advice. During the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, when the Prophet was worried that his companions would not carry out a difficult command, it was Salama who gave the wise suggestion that solved the situation. The Prophet listened to her, followed her advice, and peace was restored among the people. What does this show us? That women's wisdom is not just tolerated in Islam, it is honored. Their contributions are not hidden, they are part of our legacy. Then we have Nusayba bint Ka'b, a warrior who fought in the Battle of Uhud alongside the Prophet. She took up a sword and shield, defended the Prophet when many had fled, and sustained multiple wounds in doing so. She was praised by the Prophet for her bravery. If Islam wanted women to be soft in the way that makes them incapable of strength, how do we explain the presence of a woman like Nusayba, whose actions were honored, not condemned?
These examples are not exceptions. They are the standards set by Islam for women who live with purpose. They were not rude, arrogant, or reckless, but they were not weak, overly accommodating, or silent in the face of truth either. They balanced femininity with firmness, compassion with courage, and humility with self-worth. The mistake we make today is in assuming that strength is only for men, but strength has many forms. For a woman, it might be in raising a righteous child despite hardship, in speaking up against injustice, in walking away from a relationship that harms her faith, or in educating herself to serve her community. Strength is not loudness, it's not rebellion, it's the quiet determination to please Allah no matter what others expect. Islam didn't limit a woman's role to the kitchen or the house. It gave her the space to be a scholar, a businesswoman, a fighter, a leader, as long as she remains within the boundaries of modesty and sincerity. The problem today is that some women have been conditioned to believe their strength is a threat rather than a gift. But when used for good, a woman's strength becomes a light for herself and for those around her. So if you are a woman who wants to follow the path of the righteous, don't limit yourself to someone else's narrow definition of softness. Embrace the examples that Allah gave us. Be like Khadija in your wisdom, Aisha in your intellect, Salama in your advice, and Nusayba in your courage. This is what it means to be a strong Muslim woman in the eyes of Islam, not in rebellion, but in balance, principle, and unwavering faith. A soft heart is one of the most beautiful qualities a person can have, especially in a world that often praises hardness, ego, and detachment. But being soft-hearted should not be confused with being emotionally weak, easily manipulated, or dependent on the approval of others. In Islam, your strength begins when your heart is connected to Allah and your self-worth is rooted in His guidance, not in the praise, validation, or attention of people. Too many women today seek constant affirmation from others, whether it be through relationships, social media, friendships, or even family. And in doing so, they weaken the very foundation of their respect. Islam teaches that your value is not measured by how many people like you, choose you, or praise you. Your value is given by Allah. He created you with honor. He covered you with modesty. He elevated you with faith. The more you understand your worth in His sight, the less you chase validation from creation. A woman who knows her worth in the eyes of Allah is not desperate for attention. She is content even when the world ignores her. She is strong even when others try to belittle her. She is focused on pleasing the one who created her, not impressing those who may turn against her tomorrow. When you constantly look to others to tell you who you are, whether you're beautiful, worthy, loved, you are giving them power over your heart. And the truth is, people are unstable. One day they love you, the next day they leave you. One day they praise you, the next day they forget you. That is the nature of this world. If your heart is tied to them, you will rise and fall with their opinions. But if your heart is tied to Allah, you will remain steady, firm in your values, secure in your identity, and at peace, regardless of how others treat you.
This is not to say that wanting love or appreciation is wrong. It's natural. Allah created us with a need for connection. But when that need becomes your main source of self-worth, it leads to emotional instability. You begin to compromise your principles to be accepted. You stay in harmful situations because you fear being alone. You lower your standards because you think no one else will choose you. And slowly, you lose parts of yourself. That's not what Islam wants for you. Islam wants you to build your foundation on Allah, on knowing that no one and nothing can complete you except your Creator. This is why the Quran constantly reminds us to return to Allah. He is the free of need, and He wants you to be free of need from others when it comes to your respect. He is the most loving, and He can fill your heart with love in ways no human ever can. He is the most subtle, and He understands the pain you carry that no one else sees. When you build your self-worth on your relationship with Him, your heart becomes protected from the emotional roller coaster of seeking constant approval. A woman who relies too much on others for emotional fulfillment becomes vulnerable to disappointment, heartbreak, and spiritual emptiness. But a woman who builds her inner world through prayer, reflection, and obedience to Allah gains a sense of stability that no one can take from her. She is the one who can be rejected and still smile. She can be misunderstood and still speak the truth. She can be alone and still feel loved because her heart is filled by the one who never abandons her. Don't let society convince you that your value comes from how many people are drawn to you. Don't let your emotions be controlled by likes, messages, or compliments. You are more than someone's attention. You are more than someone's approval. You are a servant of the most merciful, and He has given you a role, a purpose, and a place that no one else can fill. Strength is not in shutting off your emotions, nor in becoming cold and indifferent. True strength is being soft-hearted but not needy. It's being emotionally aware but spiritually anchored. This world will try to define you in 1,000 different ways, but the only definition that matters is the one Allah gives you. And He says in the Quran, "Indeed, the most noble of you in the sight of Allah is the one with the most God consciousness." God consciousness is what makes you valuable, not your beauty, not your popularity, not your relationship status. So focus on building your heart from the inside.
cleanse it with remembrance, strengthen it with prayer, nourish it with Quran, and protect it with God consciousness. When your heart belongs to Allah, you no longer fear losing people, because you know the one who never leaves is enough. That is the kind of strength Islam wants for you, not hardness, not ego, but a soft heart protected by a strong soul.